Chris,
Fred,
how you doing?
doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for chilling with me, man.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yep. So we go back a little ways.
Absolutely.
How far do we go back?
Has to be 15 years old, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 10th, 11th grade is when I started coming to New Life.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so shortly after I got saved, I started attending New Life Center with my mom and sister. Mm-hmm. And you were there.
Yeah, you showed up in youth group one day, or maybe it was
did.
Sunday school.
Yeah, youth group.
And,
yeah.
At that point, I guess I was probably kind of running the place.
Yes.
You came into my youth group, essentially. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember you were, I think it was, I can't remember if it was right before I chopped off all my long hair.
I think your long hair was gone by the time I
Okay.
met. I think, but I remember the pictures well.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it was like that, it was that intermediate phase where we all cut our long hair, finally.
Yeah. I cut
And-
mine not long before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
9th grade was the last time I had long hair.
Yeah. Ninth or 10th. Same exact time frame for me. And then 29 was the last time I had my own hair.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a shame.
That is a shame,
Yeah.
isn't it?
But, okay, so youth group, you showed up, and I think it was like that mid-level. We cut the long hair, but we still did that stupid long bangs part of the middle.
Yeah.
I think it was that phase.
Yeah.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, and you were a skater from Butler, which is a bit cliche, but, it was what you were doing.
You had to have something to tie your identity to, and that's what I was no longer really excelling in sports. So
What sports did you play before that?
I played baseball. I played a lot of deck hockey and roller hockey.
Did you play anything
Never
in high
played
school?
ice.
I don't remember you being in any sports when we started hanging.
No, I never played any high school sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was more of a little leaguer.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure I was going to be a major leaguer.
Of course.
But once there was one transitional year from the 12-year-old league to the 13-year-old league, and all the kids in the 13-year-old league apparently took steroids over the summer or something.
Except
and
for you.
They pitched so fast I couldn't do a thing with it.
Yes.
I think that was the breakdown.
And I think when I played Little League, I think the league I was in, there was 4 ages and we were all together. So developmentally, playing with kids that are 3 or 4 years older than you is terrifying.
It's the difference between a JV basketball player and an NBA player.
Yeah, pretty much. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, we became pretty good friends though.
Pretty good
We
friends.
were at New Life.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, we went to BC3 together.
BC3,
Yeah.
Community college, and then we transferred to Valley Forge.
Yep.
Christian College now, University of Valley Forge.
Yes.
You got to update that on your resume. It sounds so much better.
Yeah, a lot of people looking at my resume too, so that's important.
Yeah, and with an eye critiquing it, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, yeah. So we transferred out there the same year, and now I studied pastoral ministry. Were you?
I was youth
studying
ministry.
Youth ministry? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think we were both. Those were our majors, right? We were
Yeah.
both a biblical studies degree. Isn't that what our actual degree is? And
Mine is actually a degree in pastoral ministry.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's probably what mine is too. I just make stuff up. Again, in my resume, I don't know that I have a resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but essentially, there was no difference. We took almost all the same classes.
We did.
Right?
We did.
I think there was very few.
Yeah.
You might have gotten to take a few more youth ministry classes than I did.
I did. Yeah.
Which I pretty much used up every one of my electives in youth ministry classes.
Because we had a great professor.
He was the mentor of mentors.
Yep.
Just a super charismatic guy.
Mm-hmm.
Passionate about ministry, and it kind of gave me a picture of okay, this is the kind of person I want to be in ministry.
Right.
Super inspirational, and he
Have
taught me principles that I regurgitate all the time to this day.
Same. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have you talked to him lately?
It's been some time. I talked to him Within the last few years, but I
Yeah.
used to like check in with him just about every year, but it's been some time.
So I've talked
Should
to
we
him.
call him now?
I thought we should. So I've talked to him more recently, which technically makes me a better mentee than you,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm going now because of that. I think I'm going to have to give him a call.
You should.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So after Bible college, man, you went into youth ministry as well.
Yeah.
Ended up in youth ministry, as did I. And then at some point you joined the Air Force.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I joined the Air Force when I was 34.
You were 34? Was it
Yes.
that long? No,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Wait a second.
That can't be right.
It has no 33. I was 33.
And that's when you
But
started
same-
your schooling?
yeah. No. I was finishing my schooling when I started the Air Force.
So okay, all right, cool. So when did you get out of pastoral ministry you went back to school?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
So that was 2009. 2009 into 2010 is when I transitioned back to graduate school.
Okay.
And then it was definitely 2010 when I stopped full-time work as a youth pastor.
Gotcha.
and started full-time studies.
So at that point, we had been friends for probably about a dozen years or so, and you went to study mental health because you were convinced after a decade of friendship that the greatest need in the world probably was mental health professionals.
Because of my friendship with
yeah,
you, yeah,
right. I understand.
Yeah,
I
that
understand.
had a big influence on it. Well, we should probably back up and say we there was that other significant thing where I like to remember, like we were both best men in each other's weddings.
We were.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were.
Now, do you remember my speech?
Do you remember mine?
Not one word.
Oh, praise God.
I think that's what the good.
Because
I'm glad.
I blew it at your wedding. I tried to wing it. I was
you?
so glad you don't. I'm sure Lauren remembers. 'cause
Well, you know
made
what?
a
I have it
butt
on
out
video.
of
Dan
myself.
DeRozier's videoed my wedding, so
Nice.
I have that. We'll have to cue that. Maybe we can splice that into this at the end.
That's the beauty. I do remember you borrowed a sport jacket from Chris Fox.
because I didn't have any that fit me.
Yes, I know.
Oh man,
Which-
I had forgotten that, but now I can remember that. Now I remember. That's why when I think about being in your wedding, I have this like awkward feeling. That's why I didn't even have my own clothes on.
That's true. But my wedding was super casual. Like
Yeah.
you weren't even up on stage because we just got married literally right after a church service. Which I'll have to have Kim on the podcast and tell that story sometime. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you knocked it out of the park. I'm sure you were prepared.
But the moral of this moment is that it doesn't matter. Like
It
you
really
can, if
doesn't.
somebody out there
Nobody
is
cares.
preparing a best man speech right now, just know it's not going to be remembered. Not
Nobody
one word
cares.
of it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and the expectation from best men speeches is pretty low, at least for me. You know, I don't know, I've done probably 70 to 80 weddings.
Yeah.
And best men give terrible speeches.
Yeah, they're horrible
It's
at
the
it.
bride, it's the maid of honor that usually does a good job at
least we
actually saying
had
something meaningful.
the excuse that like Google barely existed when we were getting married, so
Yes.
like we couldn't even Google this stuff. I tried. I remember trying. I don't know if it was for your wedding. It must have been. Was I a best man beyond? It must have been your wedding.
Yeah.
I tried to Google like what's a good joke for a best man speech or something, and I knew if I had a good joke, nothing else was a problem. Like it was
Where
gonna
did
be
you
fun.
you guys got married? Where'd you get married at? A New Life?
No, we got married at it was a church downtown Katanning. I can't remember the name of the church, but it was not that far from the high school.
And then where was the reception at?
That's all I can't remember either. It was
Yeah,
it was
isn't that
in the
funny?
middle of nowhere. It was in the middle of nowhere in like towards Elderton.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this was all of those elements of the wedding planning were not up to me.
Yeah, right.
Rightfully so.
That's true.
And I can't say where it was, but I can remember it was like it was on somebody's farm. It was like folks that started their own small business to run an event hall on their farm.
Yeah.
So it was a huge venue, way
Yeah.
cheaper than some of the other places we priced, but a little rural. Which,
Which is the thing now. Those
Yeah.
places
Yeah,
are like
that's true.
stupid expensive now, and there's a million of them. Everybody's like, throw up a barn and make it a wedding thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, our style was not even trendy at all, like then or now.
Right.
Like it wouldn't even pass.
And then everybody's like, what the heck are we doing in a barn?
Yeah. This is a little dirty for a wedding. No, the interior was nice. You wouldn't know. Once you go inside, you didn't even know where you were.
Yeah.
And once, oh gosh, it just left me. I was going to say electric slide. There we go. Okay. Once that kicks on, nobody cares. You could do that. You could be anywhere doing the electric slide. Everybody's having a blast.
You really dated your wedding now.
What's the stomp one?
Dude, I know what you're talking about, but yes.
Yeah.
I
always get it locked in by the very end of that song.
You actually get up and do it.
On the right time.
I've never in my life attempted to do that.
Oh, man. You just gotta stomp.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it a go next time.
Yeah.
Well, at this point now, I'm usually doing the wedding, so it's a little awkward.
Yeah.
To be the pastor. It's just awkward being a pastor at a wedding, period.
Yeah.
After the ceremony is over, I just wish I could disappear.
Yeah, I understand that. It's awkward. I've now done 2 wedding ceremonies, and I think it is awkward. I understand what you're saying there. However, it's like a built-in excuse.
Yeah.
Everybody's acting like a fool, and you're like, well, I'm the officiant. This is not how I behave. I'm going to sit over here and eat another plate of chicken.
I know, it's so weird. So. And I've done weddings where I don't really know the couple that much. I've actually gotten away from doing that now because it's just counterproductive. But there was a season where I would do that a lot, and they always put me at the table with like 4 or 5 random people, like a weird uncle or something that they don't really want around anybody, and like a first grade teacher, and like people that we're like the last table to get. We're like, we don't know what to do with these people.
I'm glad you said that because I know what you mean there. But the last wedding that I officiated was in California with a good friend of mine.
Nice.
And it was the opposite experience of that. Like he intentionally put me at a table with like really interesting people.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think you're gonna love talking to these people. That's why I put you at this table. And like literally, I sat next to incredible people. Some kid in like making millions in Silicon Valley, and there was a woman who is a scientist working on the James Webb Telescope launch.
Dude,
do you know what this is?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's it's the new technology, the new iteration to replace essentially and exceed what the Hubble telescope has done all those years. And
it's like 100 times more powerful or something like that, isn't it?
It uses a completely different technology.
Yeah.
It's just such a phenomenal development scientifically, and she's on the team. She's a physicist on the team doing research to prepare for launching that thing.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I mean, I was out of my depth. I didn't really know.
See, the weddings I do, those people aren't there, obviously. Like that caliber of human being is not there.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that.
I'll
let you insult who you decide.
I'd say like the most accomplished people I can remember running into at a wedding is I did a wedding one time. And there was a guy who had played on a football team that won the national championship. I can't remember which team it was. But he was a real big guy. Mm-hmm. And, like, he was wearing the national championship ring. Yeah. And, like, just flexing, just, like, showing off and everything. That's, like, the most accomplished person. And he was nobody on the team. Like, he didn't go to the NFL or anything. Yeah. That's the most accomplished person I can think of. But wearing that
ring, I don't know, man. That's at least on par, if not above James Webb scientist. You know, so.
Yeah, well, and the most impressive person that I can think of, I did an outdoor wedding. I've done a bunch of outdoor weddings. Most of them are now. Mm-hmm. But this particular one was just in somebody's backyard. Okay. But it was the whole nine. I mean, they got a big tent, and like there was a full wedding party, full wedding ceremony and all that. But they were drinking a lot. Yeah. And like I'm doing the ceremony, and one of the groomsmen lets out one of those like Bud Light belches that starts down here.
I can hear it. Yep.
You know?
That's the one. Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. Yeah. You know, everybody laughed, of course, but it was just ridiculous.
Yeah. That's
so we go to different weddings.
The tone for romance.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It's a sacred thing.
It was kind of
a sacred thing, those belches. Yeah. So, but wedding, we came here. I'm glad I came here today to talk about weddings. And
I know. We could do this for hours, unfortunately.
I love talking to you.
So, your role today, because this is why I brought you on.
Yeah. So maybe we would take it from, I started out my, ministry, professional life in youth ministry. We both did.
Mm-hmm.
I did that work for 7 years at a church just outside of D.C.
Yeah.
It was called Bethel Assembly of God.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had a private school, so I was the chaplain for the school.
Nice.
And I did that work for 7 years before I ended up quitting that job and taking on full-time grad school work, studies. And my transition was to study psychology. I have a degree in clinical psychology. I earned my doctorate from Loyola University in Maryland, and I've been practicing clinical psychologist for the last almost 8 years.
Yeah.
First in the Air Force, and now I work with the VA.
Yeah.
I guess just a couple words about like transitioning there, because to me, there is a real understanding, usually within the church, to kind of perceive and value the pastoral calling. And I, had to really wrestle with my understanding of like, maybe first my own confusion with trying to understand my sense of calling when my ministry or my work was so drastically changing. But
yeah,
also,
that's a big jump, huh?
We stayed in the church. Like, my wife continued to lead worship at the church where I was a youth pastor the entire time I was in grad school. And it was a 5-year program. So that's a long time. I stayed involved. I ran sound for the church.
Sure.
But I also felt compelled to like explain that shift well to the congregants and the youth that I worked with.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit, I guess variably received.
Yeah.
Some people I didn't need to even explain it.
Yeah.
Other people I don't think ever really accepted it or really wrapped their head around it.
Yeah.
So to me, I guess over time I've come to see, like, I think my calling has not really changed. I think it's always been to help and minister to people in need, to minister maybe kind of in the realm of almost like healing.
Okay.
That's kind of my sense, is like I always had this heart for like wanting to see people relieved of suffering, wanting to see people just encouraged and whole. So to me, now looking back on it, I feel like I have a little bit more of like a sophisticated way to talk about it.
Sure. Yeah.
But to me, it's not drastically different. It's just the context is very different.
Right.
But the heart, the passion is almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way that I think about that transition, which maybe doesn't seem so obvious to some people, especially if they grew up in the church and kind of had that certain kind of more maybe like a more narrow understanding of how that should look.
Yeah.
But I'm open to accept like some, like, people don't have to see it my way, or they don't have to understand my perspective on it. I just offer it. And
Well, it's so, when you're young and like trying to discern calling and desires and like, what am I going to do with my life? That process is just wrought with issues. So no, it makes perfect sense. Like, there's certainly, it's good that you kept wrestling with that until you found the place that you didn't have that answer coming out of high school. You didn't have that answer. You thought you had that answer coming out of high school, I'd say.
Yeah.
Then you go through college and you get out into what you had been trained to do, and you're like, this isn't quite it. So you made some course adjustments and you ended up there.
Yeah. Well, and I ran into and faced a real awareness of my own limitations. I don't know about you. We talked about what classes we were in together and things, but I had one class in my whole pastoral ministry degree on Christian counseling.
Right. Yep.
One class, and it was a giant book.
Oh yeah. Did I?
It's yellow. Is it on the shelf?
I think I might have given that to Marty. Yeah, I know exactly what book you're talking about.
It's at a Goodwill nearby, but
yes.
Yeah.
I just came across it again, and I think I actually snagged it and gave it to Marty, or maybe I'm totally making that up. But I came across it.
Yeah. Well, I point out that it was a very big book because it was unreadable.
So unhelpful.
Yeah.
What do you do?
It was not even helpful as a reference book.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't that. It was just.
And plus, like we already mentioned Google. Like we were graduating college at sort of the advent of people really starting to begin to use Google.
Yeah.
And now, like that's.
I think we had to dial up to use the internet when we were.
Dude, totally had dial up. Yeah.
Can you make the sound?
Yeah. No, I can't. No.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I'm not going to try. But, yeah. So, anyway, I mean, it was a completely insufficient training to be able to counsel someone or to be able to sit with people in crisis.
Yeah.
And I found myself having to do that in ministry, in youth ministry. Some really serious and intense crisis situations, and just feeling like totally unprepared and ineffective, and really not finding that to be acceptable. Like I want to be effective in those situations. I really want to be able to provide comfort and help and support to people when they're struggling. That's my heart. And I'm falling on my face just not knowing how to function in those situations. But I will tell you, you can go to 5 years of grad school and get your degree in therapy and still not really know what to say in some situations. Grief and loss and crisis.
Oh, for sure.
There really is no right thing.
Right. And don't you think there's just so many aspects of life where I don't want to say we're not, I'll just say it this way, I guess. We're not meant to have the answers.
Yes.
Like there's certain parts of like the experience of life that it's not like a verbal answer to, it's just life. You just hang in there, and have some good friends.
Yeah, there's always going to be so much mystery in life and existence and trying to understand it all. Yeah. And sometimes the move is just to embrace the mystery of it. Yep. To say, this is something that I just don't know. Yeah. And that's a humble thing to say, but I think it's necessary. I think it's a mature, stance to take on things where you really just don't know, rather than try to fake your way through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you and I have talked about a lot of those issues over the years. We've I know for sure that like I've spent more time in prayer with you than anybody else, probably other than Kim, in my life. And on the same level, I've spent more time, I don't speak for you, I've spent more time talking about deep issues probably with you than anybody else. Like these just like, man, life's crazy. What's going on?
I hope it'll continue. I hope it'll continue because I agree. Like we've been through some stuff, and like even just knowing the context, like the age, we became friends at such a young age. We walked through all these different seasons of life together. Mm-hmm. Time and distance has occurred in the relationship where there was that period where I was in the Air Force and I'm all over the country.
Yeah, and what I remember when you were out in Colorado Springs doing your clinical work out there. Remember when you took me on base? And we went to like some shopping center that's only for the Air Force or whatever,
and
there's
no tax on those.
Oh, nice. Well, there's this whole culture on any military base. I assume that's the only one I've ever been on. But like we were walking through like clothes racks, and somebody of a higher rank like intersected our path, and I didn't know like the protocol or whatever, and he ran me over, like, get out of my way, peasants.
Yeah, it must have been a
colonel. It was hilarious. I'm new here.
Yeah. Well, the worst thing is when you screw up those protocols. There was in the Air Force, I'll just go ahead and call out my own branch, but
all right, cool.
That, you know, people will call it the Chair Force, whatever, make all kinds of jokes. Like we don't
That's not even
train,
offensive. Chair
we don't
Force.
physically train
That's
as
weak.
hard as the Army, the Marines, and nobody talks about the Navy, but
Yeah, I was gonna say they get it a lot worse than Chair Force.
But the other thing that is true about the Air Force is there's at least one golf course on every Air Force base,
nice.
and there's usually like a walking trail or something nearby that, and I would always do that on my lunch break whenever it was nice weather out. I'd just walk along the golf course. It's beautiful. And the one day I came across, like you'll run into people all the time, and we're in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to salute appropriately. And one day I came across a 2-star general.
Okay.
Well, the sun, just the way the sun was shining. If you know anything about
You thought he was a private or something?
No,
or
it was actually
whatever.
worse than that. So I was a captain,
Okay.
which is 2 vertical bars attached by horizontal lines,
Okay.
right?
All right.
And so it's basically 2 pieces. Well, a 2-star general is two main blobs of insignia that demonstrates what rank that somebody is. Okay. So when you come across somebody who's same rank, there's no salute. You just say hello or whatever. Well, I somehow perceived that this was a same rank situation, and I was well past the range of what's appropriate to begin your salute, that I almost missed it before I recognized, oh gosh, those bars got spikies sticking out of them, like those are stars. And it was, and I saluted. I did the tightest salute I've done in a long time, and he ended up just being such a cool guy, which they all pretty much are. I've never...
Only because you caught yourself. He was going to go like Full Metal Jacket on you.
No, I don't know. I don't know. He... I mean, who knows how he would react, but he seemed like a real down-to-earth guy. He was so cool. I had a book. I was actually reading a book while I was walking, which is dumb, but he loved it. Like he was just like, look at you, bettering yourself, and like
nice.
So it ended up going really well. But but it was almost a huge fail. And
I was hoping that story didn't go well. I wanted to hear what happened. If
I've had it not go well one time, and she didn't call me out at all. It was a major, and I have to say it was on her. Her rank was so faded.
Oh, really?
I thought she had no rank, which would be a private, like would be first like E1 entry level private. And it was not the case. It was a major. But you're not supposed to let those uniforms fade that much. I don't know. That's on her in my book.
Yeah.
But yeah, walked all the way past, realized it was a major. I don't remember if I called back and like apologized or anything. Turned around and fixed it, but that would have probably been worse.
Yeah.
No, it was bad. That's an awkward thing.
Yeah.
But okay. So
well, hold on.
You got me sidetracked because I'm living in like this awkward embarrassment now.
So let me do this to make this easy, because we're going to talk about mental health. Mm-hmm. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But we're probably I'm not sure what time we start. We're probably 25 minutes in.
Sounds right.
So let me stop it. We'll let this just be. If people want to listen to like a little bit of our story and get to know who you are, great. And then we'll start another one and do that. So let me get this paused.